You're here because you want to know what's really happening in the Pinellas County real estate market. Okay. Forget sifting through endless articles. We've done that bit for you.
Yeah, save some time.
Today, we're diving deep into the Pinellas County real estate market update, March 2025. This is from the RE/MAX Metro blog.
Good source.
Think of this as your express lane to understanding the shifts that matter most, basically what happened last month.
Exactly. And this report gives a fantastic look under the hood, for March. And what's immediately apparent is that we're seeing some, well, very different stories unfolding. Depends if you're looking at condos and townhomes or single-family houses.
Okay. So our mission today is pretty simple. Cut through the noise, give you the essential insights from this report.
Yep.
We're going to break down those contrasting trends between the condo-town home world and the single-family home market. And most importantly, we'll talk about what this all means for you, whether you're thinking about buying, selling, or, just keeping a pulse on things.
Makes sense.
Let's start with the big picture. The report talks about a tale of two markets. What's the headline there?
Well, what's fascinating right off the bat is this clear split. It's really not one uniform market in Pinellas County right now. The forces at play and the resulting conditions are really quite distinct for those two property types.
So you can't just lump it all together.
Exactly. So when you hear about the real estate market, it's crucial to ask, okay, which segment? Because the experience for buyers and sellers, very different. Having that local property type specific knowledge is, well, more important than ever, really.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's zoom in then. Condos and townhomes first. The buzz seems to be that buyers are suddenly in a much stronger position. What flipped the script here?
Yeah, the key factor is a really significant jump in the number of properties available. Just loads more choice.
Okay.
In March 2025, the report shows 8.89 months of inventory for condos and townhomes. Now, to give that some context, that's a whopping 190.5% increase compared to March of last year.
Wow, 190%.
Yeah. I mean, imagine going to a store and suddenly there are almost 3 times as many options on the shelves,
Right.
That's essentially what's happened with condo and townhome listings. We're talking about roughly 3,800 active listings in March. That's up over 15% from just the month before, from February.
Yeah.
So that huge increase in supply fundamentally changes who has the upper hand. It shifts the power.
More choices definitely sound good if you're a buyer. So with all these extra condos and townhomes on the market, are prices taking a tumble? Is that what we're seeing?
Interestingly, not dramatically, at least not in the median sold price in the short term. It hovered around $275,000 in March, which is like only a very slight increase from February. Barely noticeable, 0.36%.
Okay, so pretty flat month over month then.
Pretty flat. However, when you look at the estimated property value, that did see a more noticeable dip, about 5.8% year over year.
Ah.
So think of it this way. What properties actually sold for last month hasn't changed much, but the overall, let's say, perceived worth in the market might be adjusting downwards a bit.
Right. The underlying value, perhaps.
Perhaps. And here's a big one for buyers. Deals are closing at about 95.6% of the initial list price.
Okay. So not full price.
Not full price. That tells us sellers are starting to make concessions, a little bit of give. If you're a buyer, that's where your opportunity lies. There's definitely room to negotiate now.
So if you're out there thinking about buying a condo or townhome in Pinellas County right now, what's the bottom line for you? What should you be thinking?
The big takeaway is you've got more power. Definitely. With so many more options available, properties are taking longer to sell. The median days on market is up to 59 days.
Almost 2 months.
Right. That gives you time. Time to do your homework, compare different places, and ultimately negotiate more favorable terms. You're not under the same pressure, that lightning-fast decision pressure we might have seen in previous, more seller-dominated markets.
More breathing room.
Exactly. Breathing room.
And what about if you're on the other side? Trying to sell a condo or townhome? What do you need to be aware of in this new environment?
Yeah, for sellers, the name of the game is strategy. Especially when it comes to pricing.
Right.
The days of perhaps listing high and still getting multiple offers quickly, well, those seem to be over, at least for the time being in this segment.
Okay.
You need to be very realistic about what the current market value is and be prepared for the process to take a bit longer.
Patience is key.
Patience, and that fact that sales are closing below the initial list price really underscores the importance of starting with a competitive and accurate price right out of the gate.
Makes sense. Be realistic from day one.
Pretty much.
The report also gives us some specific numbers on how active the condo and townhome market was in March. What do those figures tell us? Any surprises there?
Well, we saw 459 condos and townhomes sold through the MLS, the multiple listing service. That's a modest increase from February, about 5.3%.
Okay.
What's interesting, though, is that the number of closings recorded through public records, so maybe cash deals or off-market stuff, that jumped up quite a bit, almost 48%.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think that is?
Could be a number of things, maybe more investors paying cash, or perhaps just a lag in reporting, or deals happening outside the traditional channels. Hard to say for sure, but it's a noticeable jump.
Okay.
New listings continued to come onto the market, about 1,000 of them, which is contributing to that higher inventory we talked about.
Right. Feeding the supply.
Exactly. And pending sales also increased about 11.5%. So that indicates that buyers are still out there making moves, even if they're taking their time.
So activity's there, just slower.
Slower, yeah. And that longer median days on market, 59 days, up over 6%, really highlights the shift in pace compared to, a hot seller's market.
All right, let's switch gears then. Talk about single-family homes. The picture painted here seems different. The report calls it a balanced market with a spring bounce. What does that mean exactly?
Exactly. Balanced is the key word there. While the inventory of single-family homes has also seen a significant year-over-year increase, it's up 158%, which is huge.
Still huge, yeah.
Still huge, absolutely. But it hasn't swung as decisively into buyer's territory as the condo and townhome market.
Okay.
We saw over 4,200 single-family homes listed in March, which is a noticeable jump from February, almost 20% up.
Lots of new listings coming on.
Yeah, definitely a spring surge. However, the crucial difference is that the demand from buyers seems to have remained strong enough to kind of absorb some of that increase and keep things more in equilibrium.
So demand is meeting the supply better.
It seems that way, relatively speaking. It's not a declining market for sellers, but buyers definitely have more to choose from than they did a year ago. It's more balanced.
And what's happening with the prices of single-family homes? Are they also flat like condos? Are we seeing a different dynamic?
Different dynamic there. We're actually seeing upward pressure on prices for single-family homes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the median sold price in March rose to $411,500. That's a pretty healthy 4.19% increase compared to February.
Okay, so prices went up.
Sold prices did, yeah. Interestingly, the median estimated value did see a very slight dip month over month, less than 0.5%. So a bit of a mixed signal there, but the actual sales are strong.
And what about new listings? What are they asking?
The median list price for new listings was also higher, around $484,950. Suggests sellers are still feeling pretty confident, wouldn't you say?
Seems like it. And are they getting their asking price?
Pretty close. Perhaps the most telling sign of continued demand is that sellers are still getting very close to their asking price, about 95.8% on average.
Okay, very similar to condos then, that percentage.
Very similar percentage-wise, yeah. But the context is different because prices are rising and homes are selling faster. It tells us that well-priced single-family homes are still attracting strong interest and selling near list.
Right. And the term spring bounce implies more activity. Did the numbers back that up?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The activity levels for single-family homes really indicate a busy spring season kicking off in March. We saw a significant jump in the number of homes sold via the MLS 1000 or 46. That's up almost 19% from Feb.
Wow.
And an even larger increase in public record sales, similar to what we saw with condos, up over 42%.
That public records thing again.
Yeah, it's a trend across both. New listings also surged, up over 26%, meaning more sellers are jumping into the market.
Lots of activity.
Lots of activity. Pending sales are up too, almost 9%, showing sustained buyer interest. But what really stands out, especially compared to condos, is the median days on market.
How long?
Just 28 days.
Okay, much faster.
Much faster. Now, this is a bit longer than we might have seen, at the absolute peak frenzy, maybe up 26% year over year. But it's still significantly faster than the condo market. It indicates that when a single-family home is priced correctly, it's still moving relatively quickly.
So for someone looking to buy a single-family home in Pinellas right now, what should they be prepared for? Is it still super competitive?
I'd say competitive, yes, but maybe not super competitive like before. Even with the increased inventory, buyers looking at single-family homes should still anticipate competition.
Right.
While they'll likely have more options to consider than in recent years, those desirable, well-priced properties, they're still being snapped up relatively quickly. 28 days isn't long.
True.
So while you might have a little more breathing room, like you said, to make a decision compared to a year or two ago, Being prepared to act decisively when you find the right home. Still important. You can't necessarily count on having weeks and weeks to ponder an offer.
I'd be ready, but maybe not frantic.
That's a good way to put it.
And for sellers of single-family homes, what's the key message for them from this March update?
For sellers of single-family homes, the key message is that demand remains robust. It really does.
Good news for them.
Yeah. The data clearly shows that buyers are still willing to pay near the asking price for homes that are, well positioned in the market. The relatively short median days on market, that 28 days, underscores the importance of pricing your property strategically.
Right. Price it right, sell it faster.
Price it right to attract that strong buyer interest and facilitate a quicker sale. You're not in the same buyer-dominated situation as the condo market? Absolutely not. But overpricing could still lead to your property sitting longer than it needs to. You want to catch that wave.
This tale of two markets really comes into focus when we look at some of the key numbers side by side. The report had a good summary table, right? Let's maybe highlight some of those critical differences for our listeners.
Absolutely. That comparison is stark. If we compare the months of inventory, condos and townhomes are way up at 8.89 months.
Almost 9 months. Buyer's market territory.
Definitely. While single-family homes are at just 4.85 months, still technically leaning towards sellers or balanced, not nearly the same level of supply.
Big difference.
Huge difference. The year-over-year increase in inventory is also much more dramatic for condos and townhomes, that 190% versus 158%. Both up a lot, but condos more so.
Okay, what else?
Then you look at the median sold price. $275,000 for condos versus $411,500 for single-family homes. That's a substantial price gap between the two types.
Yeah, over $135,000 difference.
Exactly. And perhaps one of the most telling comparisons is the median days on market. Remember,
59 versus 28.
59 days for condos compared to only 28 for single-family homes. That really illustrates the different speeds, the different velocities at which these two types of properties are selling.
And even the percentage of asking price sellers are getting, while close, it was slightly higher for single family, wasn't it? 95.8% versus 95.6%.
Tiny bit higher, yeah. And don't forget the sheer volume. The number of single-family homes sold through the MLS in March was more than double the number of condos and townhomes sold that way. Over 1,000 versus under 500.
Much higher volume, too.
Yeah. So when you put all these data points together, the main conclusion is pretty clear, I think.
Which is?
While the overall market in Pinellas County is moving towards a more balanced state, certainly compared to the intense sellers market we've seen in recent years, single-family homes are still leading the way. In terms of price stability, maybe even slight increases, the speed of sales, and the total number of transactions.
Okay. And condos.
The condo and townhome market, on the other hand, has definitely seen a more pronounced shift. One that favors buyers with much more inventory and, consequently, more time for them to make decisions.
Okay, very clear distinction there. Now, looking ahead, the report touches on what we might expect for the rest of spring 2025, and it poses some important questions. What are the big unknowns, the things to watch as we move into, say, Q2?
Yeah, the report rightly points out some key uncertainties. With inventory levels continuing to rise for both types of properties, a key question is, will buyer activity keep pace?
Right, will demand soak up that new supply?
Exactly. We definitely saw that spring bounce in March in terms of sales and new listings picking up. But will that momentum continue through April, May, June? That's question one.
Okay. What else?
Another crucial uncertainty revolves around property values. While single-family home sold prices have held up and even increased recently, the greater supply in both the condo and single-family markets could eventually lead to some softening of prices overall if demand doesn't keep up that pace.
Gravity might eventually kick in if supply keeps outpacing demand.
It's possible, something to watch. And finally, specifically for the condo market, those longer selling times, we're seeing that 59 days median raise questions about how sellers in that segment will adapt their strategies.
Like, will they start cutting prices more?
Exactly. Will they become more willing to lower their initial prices or maybe accept lower offers to attract buyers and get deals done? Or will they hold firm and just wait longer? These are the big things to watch, I think, in the coming months.
So lots still developing. To kind of bring it all together then, what's the single most important thing you think our listeners should remember after this deep dive into the March 2025 Pinellas County real estate market?
I think the critical takeaway, really, is that you need to understand that the Pinellas County real estate market isn't just one thing right now. It's not monolithic.
Right, the two markets idea.
Precisely. There are very different dynamics at play depending on whether you're interested in condos and townhomes or single-family homes. For buyers, this means recognizing that your negotiating power, the level of competition you face, it's going to vary significantly based on the property type you're looking at.
And for sellers.
For sellers, it highlights the need to tailor your pricing, your expectations, depending on whether you're selling a condo or a single-family home. You can't just use a one-size-fits-all approach. Both sectors are, in a state of flux,
Yeah.
making it more important than ever to have up-to-date local information and to really understand these nuances.
Absolutely. Having this kind of detailed understanding can give you a real advantage, whether you're actively looking to buy or sell right now, or maybe just keeping an eye on the market for the future.
So, considering these shifting dynamics, we've discussed the buyer leaning condo market, the more balanced but still active single family home market. Here's a thought to leave with. What specific factors do you think will have the biggest impact on the Pinellas County real estate scene as we move further into 2025? Is it interest rates? Is it insurance costs? Is it migration patterns? What are you personally most interested or maybe even concerned about seeing unfold? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.